I spent my whole life sacrificing for my daughter, making sure she'd never want for anything. But I never imagined that on her wedding day, she would cast aside every sacrifice I ever made and tarnish the very values I tried so hard to build for her. My name is Juliana Ashworth. I'm 72 years old, and I'm here today to tell you my story. If you've been through something similar, please leave a comment and let me know. It helps to know we're not alone. I remember it like it was yesterday, 30 years ago. The courtroom door slammed shut behind me, bringing the curtain down on half my life, on my marriage, and on the name Sterling and Ashworth, the design firm that was once the pride and joy of my husband and me. Across the hall, my ex-husband, now just a stranger, walked in the other direction, disappearing into the shadows. But I didn't watch him go. My eyes were fixed on a small figure huddled on a long wooden bench, her little legs in their doll-like shoes dangling high above the floor. My daughter, Lily. At just 10 years old, she was already learning to face the wreckage of adults. Her big, round eyes looked at me, filled with a fear no child should ever have to bear. I walked over and knelt before her so we could be eye to eye. The cold stone floor chilled me through my slacks, but I didn't feel it. I reached out and brushed a honey-colored strand of hair from her forehead, trying to pour all the warmth and strength I had left into that simple touch. "Listen to me, Lily," I said, my voice hoarse but steady. "It's just the two of us now. Everything I do from this day forward is for you." I pulled her small, trembling body into my arms, feeling her frantic heartbeat against my chest. "I will never let you want for anything. I promise." I pulled back a little, looking deep into her eyes. "In return," I continued, "you only have to promise me one thing. Live a brilliant life to make my choice worthwhile." Lily, in her childlike innocence, just nodded over and over, tears streaming down her cheeks. She didn't understand the full weight of those words, but I did. It wasn't just a promise, it was a covenant. She would be my greatest work. Her success, her happiness, her brilliance would be the only proof I'd ever need that my sacrifice was the right one. 30 years went by in the blink of an eye, and yet they felt like a lifetime. My pride and joy was now a beautiful, smart 35-year-old woman about to be married, and I, at 72, was sitting in a fancy bridal shop on Newbury Street, watching her twirl in a gown of pure white silk organza, looking just like a princess from a fairy tale. "It's so beautiful," Lily whispered, her voice of joy and worry as she glanced at the price tag. "But it might be a bit of a stretch for me and Preston." I smiled, a smile I'd practiced for decades, the smile of a mother ready to carry every burden. I quietly walked to the counter, pulled out my credit card, and handed it to the waiting saleswoman. "Your big day has to be perfect," I told Lily, my voice gentle. "Just think of it as part of my investment in my life's greatest work." I saw a flicker of something complicated in Lily's eyes. There was gratitude, yes, but tangled up in it was something that looked like helplessness. Once again, Mom was taking care of everything. She wanted to stand on her own 2 feet, but it seemed my wings were still too wide, accidentally blocking the sunlight she needed to shine on her own. The first crack in our understanding had appeared long ago, and now it was starting to grow. A week later, that crack deepened. Lily and Preston came to my apartment. I'd spent the morning reviewing the wedding invoices, the venue at the Fairmont Capri Plaza, the jazz band, the thousands of white roses Lily adored. The final number made even me take a sharp breath. But then I smiled. For Lily, nothing was too much. They walked in just as I was lost in my work at the drafting table, my hands, showing the first signs of age but still steady, sketching the delicate curves of the old Majestic Theater ceiling vault. "Mom, are you doing this stuff again?" Lily's voice wasn't a question, but a gentle scolding. "You're 72. Why don't you just enjoy life? My wedding is right around the corner. You should be resting." She started moving around the room, tidying my stacks of books, fluffing a pillow on the sofa, as if trying to tidy up my life to her liking. My friend's mother, she worked herself into exhaustion, Lily said, her tone full of meaning. Her kids finally had to step in, send her on a trip to Europe. Sometimes the greatest love is knowing when to stop. Preston, my future son-in-law, an ambitious young man with a calculating glint in his eyes, quickly chimed in. Lily's right. You should be traveling, joining a club for seniors, just taking it easy. This meaningless work just wears you out. You should leave this kind of thing to us young folks. Meaningless work. Those two words felt like little needles in my heart. I had built the Ashworth Preservation Trust from the ashes of my old career, not to reclaim glory, but to keep creating value, to protect the beauty of this city. To them, it was just an old woman's hobby. I forced down a sigh and changed the subject. This wasn't the time for an argument. I reached for an old photo frame on the bookshelf. In it, an 8-year-old Lily in a white dress and braided hair was taking a proud bow on the grand stage of the Majestic Theater after her first piano recital. I hear Preston's company is eyeing this property, I said calmly. Do you remember this place, Lily? Lily didn't even glance at the photo. Mom, that's the past, she dismissed. We're building the future. Just then, Preston unrolled a massive blueprint across my desk, completely covering the photograph, covering our memory. The image of the Beacon, a cold, soulless tower of glass and steel, appeared, a gleaming knife about to pierce Boston's historic skyline. He pointed to its location. It's going to be built right on the site of the old Majestic Theater, a symbol for the future. I said nothing. My hands clenched under the table. My gaze turned to ice. They were talking about tearing down a piece of my soul, tearing down my daughter's most sacred memory, and calling it the future. And the most terrifying part was, they had no idea what they were doing. The night before Lily's wedding, the whole city seemed to be holding its breath. Streetlights cast long, eerie shadows on my bedroom walls. I couldn't sleep. I stood before the bookshelf where I still kept a few architectural awards from the Sterling and Ashworth days. The cold metal statues were covered in a thin layer of dust, relics of another life. I looked at them, then at a photo of Lily on her college graduation day, her smile so bright, her future wide open. A poisonous question, one I had tried to bury for 30 years, crept back into my mind. Do I regret it? Do I regret giving up the skyscrapers, the million-dollar contracts, the applause of the entire architectural world? Do I regret choosing a quieter path, a more humble life? And this little company I was pouring my heart into now, the Ashworth Preservation Trust, was it just a pathetic attempt to cling to a little bit of lost glory, just like Lily and Preston thought? The truth is, sometimes I did. There were long nights when I wondered what my life would have been if I hadn't gotten divorced, if I hadn't had to make that choice. I'm not a saint, not a mother who sacrificed without a single complaint. I'm a human being with my own ambitions and my own regrets. But then I'd look at Lily's picture, her smile, and I knew, despite the moments of doubt, my choice would have been the same. Lily was my true, lasting legacy. I wasn't allowed in my daughter's prep room. Lily said she wanted some private time with her bridesmaids, and I, as always, respected that. I sat alone in the hotel lobby, watching the guests arrive in their bright smiles and fine clothes, all part of the perfect picture I had tried to paint for my daughter. But I didn't know that upstairs, in the most luxurious suite, Lily was talking to her best friend. People don't get it. When they look at my mother, they see a hero, a woman who sacrificed everything. But when I look at her, I see a burden. Not that she's a burden, but her love, her sacrifice. It's been this invisible weight on my shoulders my entire life. The burden of having to succeed, the burden of always being happy, the burden of living a brilliant life to prove her choice was worth it. Every achievement I've ever had wasn't entirely mine. It was always a payment on a debt of gratitude from long ago. Every time I stumbled, I didn't just disappoint myself. I felt like I was invalidating her whole life. She thinks she gave me freedom, but really, she built a gilded cage around me with her love. She's still working constantly, as if she still has something to prove, but she doesn't need to anymore. That covenant is old news. Today, I'm going to free her from that burden. I'm going to break this cage for both of us. I'll show her she doesn't have to try so hard anymore. I'll take care of her, protect her, just like she did for me. Everyone will see what a devoted daughter I am, but only I will know this isn't about devotion. This is about liberation. The Fairmont Copley Plaza Ballroom was a dream. Crystal chandeliers cast a glittering light over tables draped in white silk, overflowing with roses and peonies. The jazz band played sweet, romantic tunes. Everything was perfect, exactly as I had planned and paid for. I sat at the head table, next to an empty chair for David Sterling, my old friend. A warm pride swelled in my chest as I watched my daughter, so beautiful and radiant, sitting next to the man she loved. Maybe my worries last night were for nothing. Maybe this, right here, was proof of it all. After dinner, it was time for the speeches. The groom, then Preston's father, all said lovely things. And then it was Lily's turn. She walked onto the stage, moving gracefully in the dress I had bought for her. The spotlight found her, making her the center of the universe. She began with heartfelt thanks, her voice clear and emotional. I want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate with us, and especially, I want to thank my mother, Juliana Ashworth. She looked directly at me, her eyes shining. My mother is the strongest, most generous woman I know. She raised me all by herself. She gave up her own brilliant career for me. And today, this fairy tale wedding, it's another gift from her boundless love. The room was touched. I could hear soft sniffles. I smiled, a genuine smile this time, my heart overflowing with love. She understood. She really, truly understood. But then, Lily's tone shifted. It was no longer soft, but strong, declamatory, like a politician stating a new truth. And it's because of all that, because my mother has done more than enough, that today I want to announce that her sacrifice is over. The smile on my face froze. "You've done enough, Mom," she repeated for emphasis. "I'm grown now. I don't need your protection anymore. I don't want you to keep struggling with that meaningless work at your age just to prove yourself." Meaningless work. She used those exact words again. This time, not in my small apartment, but in front of 200 guests, in front of my friends, my colleagues, and David Sterling, who was watching quietly from his table. "The greatest gift that Preston and I can give you," Lily continued, her voice now dripping with the condescension of someone bestowing a great favor, "is freedom from the burden of success. You can rest now, Mom. Let us take care of you. Let me finally be the one to pay you back." The applause that erupted was even louder than before. They were clapping for my daughter's devotion. They looked at me with a mixture of admiration and pity, as if I were an old soldier finally being allowed to lay down her arms. Through the applause, Lily came down from the stage. She didn't go back to her table. She came straight to me. In front of everyone, she wrapped her arms around me. It wasn't a hug of love. It was a hug of consolation, the kind the powerful give to the weak. She whispered in my ear, her voice firm, like someone who had just completed a mission. "It's okay, Mom. You don't have to do that meaningless work anymore. I'll take care of you." Preston arrived right behind her. He placed a hand on my shoulder and gave it 2 patronizing pats, a gesture of ownership, an assertion of the new generation's power. I sat there, frozen, in my daughter's arms, and under my son-in-law's hand, surrounded by the applause of the crowd. I was in the very dream I had built, but It had turned into a nightmare. The gilded cage I had unintentionally created, my daughter had just used it to lock me inside with the whole world watching. And she, in her blindness, called it love. Lily's hug ended, but its weight remained, crushing my shoulders. The applause died down, replaced by admiring whispers. I could hear them all around me. What a wonderful, devoted daughter. She's so lucky. What a blessing. Every compliment was a knife twisting in the wound that was now bleeding inside me. I had given everything, and in return, I received pity. Gently but firmly, I removed my daughter's hand from my arm. I didn't look at her. I didn't look at Preston. My eyes were focused elsewhere. I stood up, feeling the solid ground beneath my feet, a solidity I had built for myself over 30 years. I began to walk, not toward the stage, not toward the exit, but toward David Sterling's table. Every eye in the room followed me. A hush fell over the ballroom. David, my old friend, the one partner who truly understood me, looked at me with an expression of deep sympathy and concern. He rose as I approached. "Juliana," he said softly, his deep voice like an anchor in a storm. I saw everything. Looking at her, "Do you ever regret the choice you made back then?" His question wasn't just curiosity. It was a reminder, a confirmation. It took the doubt I'd felt last night and turned it into an undeniable fact. My sacrifice, in my own daughter's eyes, had become a failure. And in that moment, I knew I could not stay silent any longer. But before I could answer, Lily and Preston, seeing our private conversation, hurried over as if to protect me from outside interference. "Mr. Sterling, thank you for your concern, but this is a family matter," Lily said, a hint of annoyance in her voice. "My mother is just a little emotional." Preston was even blunter. He placed a possessive hand on my shoulder. "That's right. We can handle it. This isn't a business matter, after all, is it?" He said it to David, the strategic partner he'd been trying to impress all evening, with an unbelievable arrogance. That was the final straw. The combination of pity, control, and sheer brazen ignorance pushed me over the edge. David looked at Preston, astonished, then back at me, as if asking for permission. I gave a slight nod. It was time. The moment of reckoning had arrived. David cleared his throat. He was no longer speaking softly. His voice rang out, clear and powerful, loud enough for all the surrounding tables to hear. "Not a business matter, Mr. Hayes?" he asked, a wry smile on his lips. "You're speaking to the person who holds veto power over your entire career." Preston and Lily froze. "You all may know Juliana Ashworth as a devoted mother," David continued, addressing the wider room now. "But I know her as a giant. 30 years ago, she didn't just give up her shares. She exchanged them for something far more powerful, the final veto power, a living will of sorts over every single decision related to the legacy and name of Sterling and Ashworth." A gasp went through the room. "And that meaningless little company you two mentioned, the Ashworth Preservation Trust," David stressed, "is the very entity that Sterling and Ashworth commissions to evaluate the architectural integrity of all new projects. Without her approval, not a single brick gets laid." When David finished, I took a step forward. All eyes were on me. I didn't look at Preston. I didn't look at anyone else. I looked straight into my daughter's eyes. "The majestic theater, the one your husband is about to tear down," I began, my voice thick with emotion. In that instant, a memory flooded back, not just in my mind, but like a silent film playing out for all to see. A spotlight seemed to hit an empty space, and for a second, I could see the image of an 8-year-old Lily in her white dress stepping timidly onto that vast stage. She bowed. She placed her hands on the keys. And then she looked up, smiling radiantly when she saw her mother applauding in the front row.
The vision faded. I looked back at my daughter, whose face was now ashen. It was the first place you ever truly shone, I finished. I thought that memory was priceless. I was trying to protect it. I paused, glancing at Preston, who was still speechless. That theater is an irreplaceable landmark. It's a place that launched the careers of hundreds of young artists. A place that has provided jobs and passion for this city's entire theater community. It's something worth protecting. I turned back to Preston. You only see uncertain economic development and are willing to destroy a city landmark, blind to the collateral damage. That is a fundamental failure in an architect. I turned to David. David, please proceed as I've requested. And then I delivered the final blow, not to Preston, but to my own daughter. I am officially rejecting the Beacon Project. I will not let my legacy and your memory be bulldozed by greed. The wedding reception ended in awkward whispers and a hasty retreat. The fairy tale had shattered. In the hotel's luxurious honeymoon suite, a room that should have been filled with laughter and joy, there was only suffocating tension and bitter accusations. I wasn't there, but Lily told me about it later. Preston paced back and forth like a caged animal, his face twisted with fury and panic. He was screaming into his phone, making one call after another to investors, to lawyers, but it was no use. The news had spread like wildfire. "They're pulling out! All the investors are pulling out!" he roared, throwing his phone onto the rose-petal-covered bed. He turned on Lily, who sat motionless on the sofa, her magnificent wedding dress now looking heavy and absurd. "This is all your fault," he yelled, pointing a finger in his new wife's face. "You and your stupid filial piety. You've ruined everything. You've ruined my career." The first fight of their brand new marriage had erupted, not over some petty disagreement, but over the complete collapse of a future built on arrogance. Lily didn't fight back. She just sat there, listening to the accusations, and realized that the man she had just vowed to love had, just like her, never truly seen me. They had only seen a means to an end, a story to serve their own ambitions. A few days later, in their new apartment, wedding gifts were piled up, unopened. Lily moved through the rooms like a ghost, tidying things without purpose, trying to find some order in her own chaos. As she was arranging some knickknacks, she saw it. The old, worn photo frame I had tried to show her a week before. The picture of an 8-year-old Lily beaming on the stage of the Majestic Theater. In a fit of uncontrollable anger and shame, she snatched the frame and threw it straight into the trash can. The sound of shattering glass was sharp and final. She stood there, panting, as if she had just cast off a heavy weight. But relief didn't come. Instead, an endless hollow regret washed over her. She sank to the floor next to the trash can and wept. She sobbed for her own foolishness, for the pain she had caused me, and for the beautiful memory she had just thrown away with her own hands. After a long while, she slowly got up. Trembling, she reached into the trash and carefully retrieved the broken frame. She picked out the remaining shards of glass, keeping only the slightly crumpled photograph. She wiped the dust from it and clutched it to her chest. The remorse had begun. The road back, I knew, would be a long one. A week after the wedding, my apartment was deathly quiet. I took the time to sort through my own thoughts, to let the anger cool until only a deep sadness remained. I wasn't sure if my relationship with Lily could ever be repaired. The betrayal was too big, the wound too deep. Then the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Lily standing there. She wasn't wearing anything fancy, just a simple sweater and jeans. Her eyes were swollen, and she looked more tired than I felt. She had lost weight. We just stood there for a long moment, looking at each other in silence. No greetings were exchanged. She didn't step in, and I didn't invite her. Then, without a word, Lily held out her hand. In her palm was a small object. I looked down. It was the old photograph, now in a new, simple wooden frame. The picture of 8-year-old Lily on the majestic theater stage. She didn't apologize with words. She knew words were meaningless now. Instead, she offered me the memory she had thrown away and then reclaimed. It was her confession, her remorse, her silent plea for forgiveness. I looked at the picture, then up into my daughter's tear-filled eyes. I no longer saw arrogance or pity, just pure, unadulterated pain. I reached out, not to take the frame, but to take her hand. It was ice cold. I took a step back, opening the door wider. "Would you like some tea?" I asked. It was such an ordinary, simple question, but in the heavy silence between us, it was a bridge being built across a chasm. She nodded, a single tear rolling down her cheek. It wasn't full forgiveness. Forgiveness would take time and actions, not just a single moment. But it was a start. 1 year passed. Lily and Preston's marriage couldn't survive the storm. The financial ruin and the crack in their trust destroyed it from the inside out. They divorced quietly, without much drama. Preston moved to another city to start over. But Lily stayed. She didn't move back in with me, but she started showing up. At first, it was short phone calls, then quiet lunches. Slowly, we started talking again, not about the past, but about the small things in life. And then one day, she came to the office of the Ashworth Preservation Trust. She just stood in the doorway, watching me work. "Can I help with anything?" she asked, her voice hesitant. I didn't answer right away. I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw a woman trying to find her way back to herself. The site of the majestic theater did not become a glass tower. After many tense negotiations, which I led, the city council agreed to my restoration plan. A large sign was erected, proudly displaying the words, "The Majestic Theater Restoration Project, an Ashworth Preservation Trust initiative."
Today, 1 year after that fateful wedding, the construction site is bustling with activity. I'm standing on the scaffolding in my familiar hard hat, explaining a complex detail on the facade blueprint to the engineering team. And right beside me, also in a hard hat and work clothes, is Lily. She's no longer a visitor. She has become my apprentice. Every day she comes here to listen, to take notes, and to learn. She's learning the difference between lime mortar and cement, how to read the story in an old brick, about the soul of a building. She's not just learning about architecture. She's learning about patience, respect, and legacy. I unroll a new blueprint on the makeshift table. "What do you think of this detail on the ceiling arch?" I ask. "How do you think we should approach it to keep its soul, but also make sure it's structurally sound for the 21st century?"